Chapter 11. Physician. The first word from the great house was that the marriage had been postponed. Pharaoh was ill and under the care of his physician, but the people were not to be disturbed. The ceremony would be held soon. They can't keep this up forever, thought Taharka. They've gotten themselves into a trap. When the army arrives from Cush, but when that would be was uncertain. Amos's money bag was getting flat. Amos himself was strangely silent. He seemed wrapped in his own thoughts. What will you do? Said Taharka. Will you go home? You came here on a mission. You've done what you could. And, whatever else, Amos's mission seemed to have been a success. Preparations for the war against the Assyrians seemed to be proceeding. Men were being called up from the villages and the great estates, 2 out of every 10, as Taharka himself had commanded. The temple troops, the treasury troops, the mercenaries were marched out into the desert for the rigorous training under the blazing sun. The streets were seldom without the sound of a drum and the sight of a squad of men. But Amos said only, My mission has been interrupted. I will stay a while. It's because of me, thought Taharka. He's waiting to see what will happen to me. Why does he care? What will happen to me? And he answered himself, When the army arrives from Cush, it will be over. They will find the traitors, and I will be back in the great house, safe. No worry about gold rings and bags of beans. And then the unthinkable. What if it never happened? What if this were all that was left to me? What would I do? Strangely enough, it was Talos, returning from the markets, who provided an answer. He settled his packs, talking softly to himself, a habit of men who traveled and lived alone. Poor Baku. Who's Baku? A man I met down on the docks. He's a physician there, to the longshoremen. Not much money, but it's a living. Only now his apprentice has been conscripted. He doesn't know where he's going to find anyone else, down on his luck, with a scribe school education. Very slowly Taharka sat up. His eyes were very wide. Down on his luck with a scribe school education? Where is this man? He asked. You have read the papyrus on the heart and the blood? You have read the papyrus on surgery? I have studied them, at scribe school in Cush. Taharka added honestly. I'm not sure how much I remember. The little brown man with the shaved head and the linen kilt studied him closely. That doesn't concern me, he said. You would only assist me, always under my direction at first. You would study at night, of course. You would memorize all the incantations, all the prescriptions. There was a long silence. Taharka glanced around the whitewashed room with its basins and instruments. His heart was beating very fast. Outside he could hear all the hurry and bustle of the docks, the wash of the river against the boats, the flapping of sails, the shouts of the foremen. Very well, said the man at last. We will try you. Next day, a man came in with a toothache. Baku tested his apprentice. What poultice would bring down the swelling? And Taharka, searching his mind from his studies of the night before, rattled off the formula. Mix it, said Baku. A woman, the wife of one of the foremen, came in, very upset. She had only had 3 children, she said, and already her hair was turning gray. Taharka looked through the papyrus on cosmetics, mixed a rinse, and sold it to her, with instructions on how to apply it at home. Then he was left alone in the surgery. A man had been injured on one of the boats from Memphis and could not be moved, and Baku had been called to the scene. As Taharka was using the time to brush up on a certain magic formula that had baffled him, another man was carried into the room, bloody and moaning with pain and fear. An emergency. What was he to do? But it might have been the boatman on that long-ago crocodile hunt, the same wound, but gotten in a knife fight, not from the teeth of Sebek. And here everything was at hand, the splints, clean cloths, needles, and threads to sew the wound. The man went out on his feet, bowing and smiling, uttering his thanks and his relief. Thank you, doctor. Thank you, doctor. Doctor? Taharka, who had been called a god, stood smiling foolishly in amazed self-satisfaction. He ambled home that night in a haze of good feeling, humming a tune to himself. It was a love song, but that reminded him of Shepneset, so he switched to one of the sailors' chants that he heard every day on the docks. At a corner, he collided with a man who seemed to be waiting for someone. It was Taharka's fault. His mind had been on other things. Sorry, are you all right? The man bowed low, but not before Taharka had seen his face. The scar on it made it one that would easily be remembered. The man did not speak. After a moment, Taharka looked back. The man was gone. Whoever he was waiting for, he seemed to have found him.